afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt. I am one of the head butchers here at Healthy Butcher Queen.
And I'm Sam. I'm also one of the butchers here at the Queen Street store for Healthy Butcher.
Today, we are going to break down 1/2 of a Berkshire pig. Alright, so a little bit about this pork before we get into it. So the pork we're going to be breaking down today is a Berkshire breed. This is a little bit more of an older breed than you would see here traditionally. This was kind of came around about 350 years ago from central England, and it very quickly gained popular all across Europe, just because it does have amazing fat, amazing muscle structure, which is really ideal for charcuterie and stewing. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do when we start breaking down a side of pork is remove the kidneys. And then once the kidney is removed, we start removing all of the leaf lard, which is this big pocket of fat right here. Once the leaf lard and kidney are removed, the second cut we make is on the head. What I do is I just come right behind where the ear would be, and I make my first incision. I'm gonna have to get around the vertebrae. So, that's one head.
Now we're going to remove the front half, the butt, picnic, hock, and trotter of the animal. So for most animals, you start between the 4th and 5th rib. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 ribs there. So I'm going to saw. There. Just smoothly. There's a small amount of cartilage down there where the breast is. Crack through that. You have separated the entire front half of the animal. So now we have here the pork butt, picnic, country rib, hock, and trotter. So now I'm going to make 3 cuts on the bandsaw. The points that I'm aiming for each of the cuts is the first one for the trotter is right where the knuckle joint is on the side facing me. For the hock, it is just squaring it off perfectly along that picnic there. For the butt, you are aiming just along the very top of the vertebrae, right here, snipping off just a small piece of it.
Alright, so Sam just made her 3 cuts on the bandsaw, and now whenever you're using the bandsaw or a handsaw, we have to scrape down the muscle to remove any kind of bone and fat residue on there. If left on there, this mixture of bone and fat will create an environment on the surface of the meat that just allows bacteria to grow very quickly. So it's always best to clean it right off, and that way the shelf life of your pork or your beef will be a little bit longer.
Now we are going to be removing the ham, hock, and trotter from the back half of the animal. So for this, basically what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be lining up my saw perfectly parallel as if I was taking off the hock. So there's going to be a perfectly parallel line right here, and that's what I'm aiming for when I saw. Finally get through the meat. There you go. That is your ham. From the ham, you get obviously your smoked hams. Your prosciutto also comes from this. As you can see, the shape of the prosciutto is very familiar here. As we break it down, we'll further talk about the parts. That is your whole leg.
Alright, so the next section of the pork we're going to break down now that the ham and the shoulder are removed. We're just going to focus on the loin section here. And this is all the nicest parts come from. This is where you're going to get your back ribs, you're going to get your rib chops, you're going to get your tenderloin, and a couple of nice boneless loin ribs. I'm just going to start up. Here we go. So first thing I do is I take the section, just angle it so it's easier for me to work with. Just trim off a little bit of this fat that sits on top of the pork tenderloin. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do here, the tenderloin's looking pretty loose at the moment, so I'm just going to remove the pork tenderloin, just because it's not really going to build us any nice pork chops. draw a line to start separating my loin section from my belly and my spare ribs. So, draw a line right here where the pork tenderloin would have sat. Follow all the way up. I'm gonna make an incision just the very last rib bone. And this is gonna allow me to get my saw in a little bit nicer. And here, I just take my saw, follow that line. Now I'm just going through the bone. Now I'm just going to finish my cut with my knife all the way down. Right. Now I'm just going to quickly bone scrape. Okay. Once it's all separated, what I'm left with is my spare ribs and my pork belly, and then I have my loin section right here. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start removing the spare ribs from the belly. And the first thing you're going to do is just take your knife. You're going to go underneath the ribs. Belly's nice, ready to go. And then we have our spare ribs right here. Next up, we're going to start with our loin section. Alright, so this loin section is, like I said, it's going to be your most tender and best tasting part of the animal. So I have my rib section, and then I have my short loin section. So I'm going to start by making an incision with my knife. Cut with my large knife, just like that. Our spare ribs, our belly, and our tenderloin.
So I have the top sirloin section here and the short loin section. I'm going to be removing that now, the top sirloin. So this is the H bone here. I'm looking for basically the end of it. You can feel it right where pretty much the second vertebrae is, right there. You can feel it down, and you're going to put your knife in right at the end of that bone. Just a very simple snap to remove it. So I'm going to put that side piece aside for now. So now I'm going to work on the top sirloin, removing that H bone there. There's a flap of meat on the top here. It's not necessary. That's going to get added to our pork trim, which we use for either sausages or our ground meat. I'm going to approach the bone from the side here. Putting the tip of my knife in and following it down. This bone curves. It's probably one of the weirdest bones on the animal, I would say. Just the whole while flatting my knife along that bone. Okay. Now we're going to clean up the rest of this top sirloin here.
So my next cut on the bandsaw, I'm going to take the whole ham and I'm going to remove the hock and the hind trotter. Here is a full side of pork broken down into all of its primals. So just to recap, we have the whole head, we have the shoulder, which is the butt, the picnic, and the hock. And then we have our loin section, which is comprised of our rib loin, our short loin, and our top sirloin. In the middle, we have our pork tenderloin, And then down here we have our spare ribs, our pork belly. We have a little bit of that nice leaf lard, our fresh kidney, and then our ham and our hock. From here, we're going to start breaking things down as you would see them in our case on a daily basis.